That boy used to wander the streets, clutching a stack of lottery tickets, stomach growling with hunger, eyes tracking every passerby, just hoping to sell a few to buy medicine for his mom. At night, he'd curl up in a corner of the market, gripped by the fear of being forgotten by the world. The day his mother died in his arms because they couldn't afford treatment, something inside him broke. From the deepest pit of suffering, who would have thought that one day, that very boy would become a doctor, the one saving countless lives? His name was Nam. At just 10 years old, he was already used to the sting of the scorching sun and the layer of street dust clinging to his face. His father had walked out when he was still in diapers. His mother, a frail woman with calloused hands, took on whatever job she could find, struggling to raise him in a city that never seemed to care. Then one day, she fell ill. It wasn't just a cold or a fever, it was the kind of sickness that needed expensive medicine and doctors' prescriptions, only for those same doctors to quietly shake their heads when she asked, "Is there a cheaper option, doctor?" From that moment on, Nam left school. He roamed the streets with a stack of lottery tickets in hand. On some days, he didn't sell a single one and had to go hungry. On others, he'd get robbed and cry until his throat ached, yet no one turned around. He learned to swallow his tears, to lie and say "I'm fine" whenever his mom asked. Each night, he curled up in their tiny, rundown room, next to his mother's wheezing, pale body. He didn't dare fall asleep, terrified she might stop breathing before morning. And eventually, the worst happened. She passed away in the middle of a rainy night while Nam was still counting their last coins, hoping to buy more medicine in the morning. His world collapsed. No mother, no home, no hope. Nam sat frozen, staring at the prescription she left behind, the unopened packs of medicine, the dreams that never had the chance to grow. He sat there, alone in the empty room, his small hands clutching the old shirt she always wore. In his tear-filled eyes, there flickered the faintest light not of hope, but of quiet rage at fate itself. And yet, it was that very flicker that would carry him through the darkest days of his life. After his mother's funeral, Nam had nowhere left to go. He drifted into a wholesale market area, selling lottery tickets by day, sleeping under shop awnings or on park benches by night. The few coins he made barely covered his meals and the occasional worn-out notebook he picked up secondhand. Though he'd left school early, Nam never stopped learning. He studied whenever he could, reading newspapers, scraps of paper, anything he could get his hands on. He learned in the dark, surrounded by the roar of trucks and the midnight calls of street vendors. One scorching afternoon, while selling tickets near the hospital, he met Dr. Hun, a tall man with a stern face but kind eyes. Noticing the thin, sweat-drenched boy patiently standing at the hospital gate, the doctor stopped to ask him a few questions. Nam told his story. Dr. Hun listened quietly for a long time. Then he asked, "Do you want to go back to school?" That question pierced straight through Nam's hardened heart. He didn't dare believe it was real, but he nodded. From that moment, everything changed. With Dr. Hun's help, Nam enrolled in evening classes. By day, he still worked every job he could to survive, waiting tables, handing out flyers, washing motorbikes. He studied like his life depended on it, because to him, it did. If he slowed down for even a moment, the past would drag him back. There were times he collapsed from exhaustion. Times he cried alone in the school bathroom. Times when everything felt pointless. But then he'd remember his mother, her pleading eyes, asking for just a few more years to live. He'd remember that final night, when she held his hand and whispered through trembling lips, "Be a good person, my son." Nam gritted his teeth and kept moving forward. One test at a time. One grade at a time. No one believed a former lottery ticket seller could dream of becoming a doctor. But Nam didn't just dream. He turned every wound into a stepping stone. And he walked forward, even when it made his feet bleed. 7 years later, the boy who once sold lottery tickets was now a second-year medical student. Nam was still thin, still lived frugally, still worked odd jobs just to get by. But his eyes had changed. No longer filled with fear or avoidance, they now held a quiet resolve. The look of someone who knows where he's going, and why. Every time Nam stepped into the hospital for clinical practice, memories of his mother came flooding back. The faces of unconscious patients, the soft groans echoing through long night shifts, it all cut deep. A constant reminder that he had once stood powerless, watching the person he loved most slip away. Some nights, after grueling shifts, he'd sit silently in the break room, anatomy book in hand but mind weighed down by grief and memory. The first time he witnessed a patient die, a middle-aged man who came in too late from a heart attack, Nam stood frozen. The man's wife collapsed at his bedside, choking on sobs, clutching his cold, lifeless hand. In that moment, Nam's entire past came rushing back. His vision blurred, not from fear of death, but from something deeper. He knew that pain. That helpless, hollow ache that had no words. That night, he wrote a single line in his journal. "I want to become a doctor, not just to heal, but to make sure no one has to watch their loved ones die helplessly, like I once did." That was the moment Nam's dream stopped being just his own. It became a mission. From a child surviving the chaos of life, Nam was growing not just in knowledge, but in compassion. He didn't study to be the best. He studied to save lives, with both skill and heart. And he understood something most never do. To truly heal, he had to walk this path to the very end. Not for glory. Not for recognition. But because once, he was just a child no one could help, and he vowed no one else should carry that scar ever again. On the day Nam received his medical degree, a light rain began to fall. He stood quietly for a long time at the gates of the university, holding the diploma he once thought he'd never live to see. Through the gentle drizzle, his mother's image came to him, blurry, but warm. She had once dreamed of seeing him in a white coat. And though it came late, he had finally made that dream come true. While his classmates stayed in the city, applying to prestigious hospitals, Nam made a different choice. He went back. Not to the place he was born, but to the wholesale market that had once taken in a homeless child. It was all still there, the rusty tin roofs, the kids hawking lottery tickets, the poor too sick and too scared to go to a hospital. And Nam knew this was where he needed to be. He opened a small clinic on the edge of the market and named it Mother and Child. Everyone asked why he didn't name it after himself, or choose something more impressive. Nam just smiled and said, "Because if it weren't for my mother and people like her, there wouldn't be me." Nam's clinic wasn't just a place for treatment. It was where the elderly came for free blood pressure checks. Where kids got regular checkups for their ears, noses, and throats. Where hardworking women could ask about their health without shame, without worrying about money. One day, a boy stood hesitantly at the clinic door, clutching a stack of lottery tickets. Skinny. Shy. Eyes full of quiet desperation. Eyes that looked just like Nam's once did. Nam invited him in, gave him water, gently asked a few questions. After the checkup, he pressed a brand new notebook into the boy's hands and said softly, "When you're ready, I'll help you go back to school. Okay?" The boy nodded. And in that moment, Nam knew. He had truly come home. Not just to a place, but to himself. The child who once fell, now returned to lift others back up. In the years that followed, the lights at the Mother and Child Clinic never stopped glowing. Though small, it became a sanctuary for hundreds of lives that once looked a lot like Nam's. People grew familiar with the sight of a young doctor spending sleepless nights stitching up a child who had fallen off a bike, or rushing into a slum at midnight after a desperate call. Doctor, someone struggling to breathe. Nam lived simply, just like the life he came from. No designer shirts, no fancy car. He still rode his old motorbike, still ate street food like a student, and gave away most of his income to buy medicine, equipment, or fund scholarships for children who dared to dream. One day, a local newspaper wrote about him. They called him the Angel Doctor, a silent hero in the chaos of life. But Nam just shook his head and smiled. "I'm no hero. I'm just a lottery boy who once lost his mother, and I don't want anyone else to go through that pain." And so, he kept going, not to forget the past, but to turn that past into light. Every life he saved, every child he helped back into school. Every poor patient who no longer had to choose between medicine and a meal. They healed a little piece of the scar he carried inside. And the miracle was this. The more he healed others, the more he healed himself. One rainy afternoon, Nam sat under the clinic's awning, watching people rush by. A young boy approached, trembling as he held out a stack of lottery tickets. Nam didn't buy one. He simply asked, "Have you eaten yet?" Just like Dr. Hung had once asked him. Life goes on, full circle. The lottery boy from yesterday now lives a life more meaningful than any miracle. No need for grand dreams. Just a warm enough heart to light the way for those still lost in the dark. And so, from a child once forgotten by the world, Nam became the one who reached out to hold others close. He didn't change the world, but he eased a part of its pain. With everything he had lost, endured, and quietly dreamed of. Nam's story isn't a fairy tale. It's real, harsh, but also quietly miraculous. Because sometimes, light doesn't come from brilliance, but from the deepest cracks in a wounded heart. If you're somewhere in the dark right now, please believe this. As long as you keep walking, keep believing, and keep being kind, there is still room for hope tomorrow. And maybe, just maybe, you, not someone else, will be the one to light the spark for someone standing on the edge of despair. Because sometimes, just one heart that's warm enough is all it takes to warm another life.